I know I've taken a minute. I've been behind the last couple chapters on the series, and I'm kind of okay with it. Not in a negative way. Before you think of like, wow, would I be okay with it? It's more so if you've read a lot of shonen, a lot of the early area like exists in these mini arcs, and I kind of am glad that I did, just from the fact that I got a little bit overhyped on this magic. I actually thought that he was going to be a much higher level than we seemingly got, because I figured the indication that he, that because we got his actual name. He's, what is it, the sorrowful joy magic? Let me double check before I go into it. Yeah, the joyous sorrow magic. I figured the fact that he looked very humanoid, that he was going to be a king magic, kind of like Uro, and it was going to be more so playing into that, like, oh well, the more human they look, the more the more high level and capability. Where it's like maybe this guy just in face, and that's why he has to stay inside of the big fake taper version of Bakugami. But that is not the case. Like I said, we were exposed that this dude was, a bad guy all along. Who would have thought? And because of that, the the whole setup, for one, I I was hoping a little bit more pushback from the country, like the Bakugami people. I was thinking like, okay, if you make them an enemy, are they like, are they gonna like bust out warriors and people that maybe aren't? Because I didn't think that like they were gonna have a fighter that directly is like, yeah, Deskross is like, oh shit, this person is actually capable. But say if you just have this endless swarm of people that are enough that she has to be like, okay, well now I'm a little distracted. If you kept doing that, like, not somebody that she could just like, oh yeah, drop this spell, AoE takes everybody out. Where it's like, oh, I took out half doing that. There's still like 3 or 4 guys coming, and every time I take one guy out, another 2 guys pop up. Because I figured like that, it would be more so threatening. Because I didn't think that these guys were going to be a military threat, but I still figured that they would be at least dangerous enough that if you just walked up and started dealing with trying to acquire this, it would it would be like a more so like, Bakugami, and I guess in this place, or in this instance now, the joyous sorrow magic would just sit back and be like, I don't got to do anything. I don't got to do anything. As long as I have this here and I've got these guys defending me, there's nothing you guys can really do. But more so, it's they just seem to be people. They just seem to be people with weapons. Like Ichi and Gakuroku are just, they're like kind of just cruising around, flying like not that high above the ground. They're like maybe like 20 feet. And these guys are like, they're just regular guys with spears. They're just regular dudes. They're chasing after them. They're trying to get them. And it's like, I don't see why they couldn't have come in and Deskross was just like, all right, listen the fuck up. You guys shut up. You guys shut up. If I'm wrong, then you guys can go back to doing what you're doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, and I don't trust this magic. Because, again, in the verse, we know that. I mean, I'm making sure. Every once in a while, I forget to turn the gain up on my mic. But we know in the verse that relatively all magics are evil. It doesn't seem 100%, and it doesn't seem like every single time a magic is even, shown up, they're going to be super malefic and vicious. But it seems like most of them are. And it's not even most of them, it just seems like an overwhelming majority of them are dangerous to keep around pretty much at all. I don't imagine you get a lot of magics that are just like, listen, I have zero aspirations for killing people. I have zero aspirations for doing anything crazy. I just want to work on my landscaping. And it's just like, it's some magic, and all he does is some dude, he has a shovel, and he's like, I just love digging. And, something like that, where you're like, well, how are you supposed to acquire this guy if he's just being, fine and cooperative, but you don't really want to mess with him? Because I think something like that would have made for a more kind of like confusing scenario of like, how do we go about doing this? But I mean, like, now they figured out the problem, they figured out what's going on. And again, the reason I mentioned that like early series, why I was fine with this, is because a lot of the early series portions, you get a lot of these shorter arcs, and you get stuff that is, again, if this was maybe like 100 chapters from now, I would probably think that this arc would need to be twice as long. But just because it, we only started a handful of chapters ago, it's also introducing a new character who I'm guessing is going to be part of the main cast. So it all checks into what I would assume would be a shorter arc, and why we got to a lot of the actual like big reveals of what's going on here. You know, this chapter. So we have what's Golconda. That's the owl looking info guy. Probably Descarav's best magic in my opinion, just because the fact that it's going to be useful in every single encounter that she doesn't have information. Oh, what magic are you? What's your trial? And we know that we saw with the world hater magic that he has he's able to resist, but there was like a moment where he was kind of going into it a tiny bit, and because of that, it tells me that most magics are gonna, the second Golconda grabs one of these, they're pretty much locked in until they can get out and figure out what their counter plan is. But as it were, I mean, this guy was pretty much responded like you would expect. He's mad that Descaras was near the world hater magic, and I'm a little surprised that he got mad about it. I figured that, like, when I saw, like, that he was, like, he could, dude's literally like, I can smell him on you. You'd figure that he would be hyped, because I guess we don't know the full person-to-person lore on the magics, and, like, where did they initially come from? Did somebody make them? What's going on with that? I would assume at least if they didn't have a creator, if they all spawned somewhere initially, or had some form of place where they initially would like meet up, because we know that the world hater magic knows the other magics to some form of degree. Like he recognized Ororo recognized the world hater magic. So I would assume at some point the joyous sorrow magic and the world hater magic had to have met each other, because like if he never really met him, I would assume you'd want to get like any information and like the smell of him off of Descaras, because this is your best bet into figuring out some information at least. But once we got the information on him, saying that he was a human hater magic, and then that he was the joyous sorrow magic and not the blessed sleep magic, I was like, okay, well now we're gonna get into the fight, because this guy now he's played his reveal cards. We know now what exactly his magic is. We know his trial, and we see like a part where he pulls out like it's like just like a little lettering for sad, and sends it back to the guy that initially he took the magic from. Is an odd little mole looking person, and I can't 100% tell if this is a guy or girl. I'm gonna assume it's a dude, because it gives off more of like a weird little fanboy energy. But he's like saying that, I take people's sorrow and sadness and then return it to them concentrated many times over. I'm kind of curious as to why you wouldn't, like, I would keep going. If I was him, I would keep going, because as long as you can grow this, you're able to really kind of maintain your plan. Like, the second that you really play all your cards like this, it's like, oh, well, if you absorb, like just the trial. Oh, if you absorb all of the sadness I've accumulated, that's the trial. You're just giving somebody like the end, because the second you run out of this, that's 10 years of planning that you've now given up. If I was this magic, I would immediately take like 10, 20, maybe 30%, scatter it in all directions, and just make such a level of mayhem that Descaras and Gokuraku have to go and take care of that, and then leave. This guy is gonna get captured 100%, and he's gonna be butthurt about it. I hope so bad that Ichi acquires him, and Ororo makes this guy like his errand boy. This is like gonna be the dude inside his magic circle that is just constantly, they're like, shut the fuck. Every time they've got a plan going, and he's gonna be one of those ones that tries to like tune in, and they're just like, shut up. You never have any good plans. All your plans have to do is, take 10 years. We need this in 2 weeks. This is definitely like an early series bad guy. This guy has very early series bad guy energy to him. And again, I like that though. And it doesn't feel, because when I saw he was a humanator magic and his level was like I said, I thought he was going to be way higher up. I figured just like the fact that he was more humanoid looking, that he was going to be, one of these upper class higher level magics. No, he's, as far as we know, he's just another human hater magic. I don't know if there's a number for how many of the king magics there are. I'd have to go back and look. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I would assume there's only one world hater magic, but if Ororo's not the top, like, it seemed at the very start of the series, I would assume there's a couple other that are his level, but this guy just doesn't seem to be that case, this evil looking little mole man. But as it were, his trial, he said, it's like you have to take all 10 years of this energy that he's absorbed, this sadness energy, and he can choose his challenger. And he was initially, like, at least from the end of the chapter, was saying that he was going to choose Goku Raku's sister. I think that this dude is going to get baited, and he's going to pick Goku Raku. One thing that we saw about him earlier in the arc is that he has this sleeping rage inside of him when it comes to this magic. Every single time that he thinks enough about him, he just goes into a bloodthirst. And I think if he is able to convince him to let him take all that sadness, it's gonna hurt him. But every single time that he, like, in his mind and in his soul, that he experiences one of these moments that just bring him down, he's gonna get furious. I think that he's one of those characters that every single time it's, again, he'll understand. It'll be like, each of these people going through hard times and why they turn to this magic to get rid of their sadness. I think the fact that Goku Raku is going to understand that this magic has been, like, feeding on people and playing into their sadness, like, not for the fact of, like, oh, if he just absorbed them and then just never gave them back, like, in a way he'd still be helping, but with this malicious idea in mind, it's only going to fast track into fury. It reminds me, if it happens, of Musica from Rave Master, where, like, a dude used a sleep ability on him and it didn't work because he's just like, I am so pissed. There is no logical way I could fall asleep right now. I'm running off of pure anger. And that's how I would imagine that Goku Raku is going to go. Because I would assume, one, if it's Deskross, I don't think it'll be Deskross because we just had hints into her backstory. I don't imagine we're going to be getting another jump into her sad backstory right away. I think that would, like, especially in an arc that is not focused on her, it would make more sense to focus on the new character. So if we get that, and obviously, like, I don't know if I would want to see it with Ichi right now, but I'd be cool with it because he's the main character. But I would prefer it if we get it from a character, again, that's set up to where we could see him get this nice conclusion in his arc of doing, because he doesn't have to beat this guy in a direct fight, as far as we know, because it doesn't seem like he's very combat capable. I mean, his power, he seems like he has a minion power where he'd be able to control a bunch of these guys, but I don't really see him being much of a fight once we get to the point of, somebody actually taking on his challenge, because it seems that's another thing. If they take on his challenge and they win, then it's over. His trial is done. All that sadness is fixed. They're going to reacquire they're going to acquire that magic for Ichi. And on top of that, I'm very curious, and this is the one thing I want to close out on. I'm very curious as to the fallout of these events. Because it makes sense that if the sadness returned back to people, they're able to remember stuff that they'd forgotten, and, all that damage going back into their mind and their psyche. But if it's dissipated, would it just be like, they will remember, but they won't be as directly sad? They'll be naturally sad, which I think would be pretty good, actually, as a way to end this. It's like if, instead of being like, during some horrible event, raiders came in and they killed your grandparents and they were all that you had in the world, and you used the magic to help forget that, and then you remembered, but instead of it being that sadness through, like, maddening illusions and whatnot sent back to you multiple folds, if it's just like you just remember and you're like, well, damn, you get naturally sad, you get actually just like, you get in your feelings, but it isn't some mind bending, you're about to have a complete and total psyche melt, you know what I mean? Because I think that would be a really good way to end it, to where the characters again are taking in and processing the sadness naturally and organically instead of looking for a artificial way to subdue it, that got him into this scenario in the first place. So we'll see. I really liked though the whole general idea with the magic where he's just like, I'm gonna have essentially this entire country commit mass like psychotic suicide, and so all of their screams and cries will go out as a song to the world hater. The problem I have with that, not in like, oh, doesn't make sense. You'd think you'd save it. You'd think you'd save that for like when you think the world hater is nearby, or you have some way to show him. Because think of like if I doubt the world hater would really care, because he would probably just like, how would he even find out about this? Oh, some magic killed out some country over in Bakugami. You think he's really gonna be like, oh man, I better go find out what magic that was? He's probably gonna be like, some guy up to no good. All the witches are gonna go get him. Because that's the thing too. I don't want to ramble on for too much. Is I feel like with him, if he played his whole hand, like he did all, unleashed all that sadness, he could, and successfully got all of these people to commit suicide. At that point, wouldn't he have zero sadness built up, and then they could just waltz in and completely clap this guy? Because he would have what, like, oh, how much you have to complete my trial and absorb all the sadness I've absorbed. And he's just like, looks up, he's like, dude, you got rid of it. You've got about 15 minutes of sadness that you got from one guy over there. And he's just like, oh shit, I didn't think this through. But I don't know. I mean, granted, like I said, he is an early series bad guy. He is not thinking with like his whole schemes are to get to this point for this Hail Mary. But I feel like after this is like, is he prepared for getting captured? I don't know. But anyway, other than that, comment below. Tell me your thoughts are about this chapter and how you think that the manga has been going the last couple chapters. Because this is like the first, I would say this is like the first real arc. We had like mini arcs before this. This is like the first kind of like actually out with the plot. Stuff is going on that we understand of where the story is heading and why. So this is I would assume this is a really good opening and just general display of what we're going to be seeing. Because the other magics prior to this really weren't that much of a problem. Like we know that they were problematic, but in comparison, it's like, what is it? God, I'm trying to remember all their names now, because I know there's like there was the mushroom one. I know there's gonna be somebody mad that I don't call him the actual name. We got the dog, the lightning dog. We got the ice shark. But like none of them were really that crazy in terms of how they conducted themselves. But obviously this guy is an extra lunatic. But anyway, other than that, I'll talk to you guys later.